Welcome to the Haunted Hangover podcast. I'm Louie, and I'm joined by Sam.
Hello, hello, hello.
And Manny.
Yo.
And today is Friday the 13th, an unholy day. What's really interesting? It's the spooky season, technically, or spooky season eve, September. Mm-hmm. And there's a Friday the 13th, so that's always good. It would have been better if the Friday the 13th was in October, but I think that happened a few years ago. But we'll take what we can get in September.
It was last year.
Yes.
Oh.
No Friday the 13th in October this year.
It never please you, huh? It's got to be in October.
Last year was pretty good. We had a Friday the 13th. We had a lunar eclipse and a full moon in like 4 days of each other. How much do you want?
How much spookier can you get?
I want it to be the most unlucky.
You probably slept through the whole thing, too. You didn't do anything.
Probably. More than likely.
You missed it all.
Missed the moons. Missed the skies. Actually, no, I think I paid attention that year. I think I did step outside and take a glance.
I'm proud of you.
So
good for you.
Get it straight there. But yes, Friday the 13th. And what better way to celebrate than to talk about a horrific figure attacking children at a summer camp? And we're not talking Jason.
That's what you want to call it. All right.
If that's what you want to call it. We're not talking our boy Jason. We're not even talking Angela from Sleepaway Camp. We're talking everyone's favorite plumber from 1991, Zeke the Plumber.
Who are you? I'm Zeke the Plumber. I'm the custodian who grants you wishes.
From the short-lived yet insanely popular Salute Your Shorts. Now, Sammy, because it's always fun to start with you with these old TV shows.
Yeah.
TV shows older than her.
About the same age.
We hold you in our hearts. And when we think
about
you, it makes me want to fart.
That's what I knew my sister would remember that specifically.
Oh, man.
Sammy.
I didn't even know, Louis, I did not even know I knew this show until I watched it.
It's like a Mandela effect, right? You forgot it existed, and you were like, I remember that theme song just came to me.
Exactly. Usually I skip the intros. I did not skip the intro. I was in it.
Once you heard fart, you knew you had to stick around and watch the rest of the episode. Sammy, I know you know what this is because of me, per usual.
Well, 91, so I was born dead. Okay, but of course, like most of the anthologies that we talk about, we were blessed with cable television and reruns. So this is definitely like one of those things. So it's really deep in my core memories, but I do remember Salute Your Shorts. So good.
Yeah, and unlike those anthology shows, this is an actual children's show that's there's sort of a narrative playing throughout each episode and each season, which there aren't many. So I figured you would remember this show, but really not remember it. Just remember me watching reruns and watching it on Nickelodeon. Manny, the seasoned veteran here.
Yeah.
What is your knowledge of Salute Your Shorts? I know you know what it is.
I watch this religiously. I loved Salute Your Shorts and Hey Dude. I loved these shows.
Yeah.
So that's an interesting conversation. See, so Hey Dude wasn't... I enjoyed episodes, but I wouldn't call the entire series my jam.
I mean, I don't remember the whole series. I remember loving the series. I'm sure if I watched it all now, I'd be like, this is garbage.
But like,
this is probably
you might not.
No, I might not. You don't know. But I loved it then. I loved this. I didn't watch Pete and Pete. I liked this, though.
Which is interesting because I feel like out of the three, that was probably the more cinematic. Bigger production value.
It didn't have anything to do with the show. It had to do with the fact that my brother liked Pete and Pete, so I did not like Pete and Pete.
Like, fuck that guy.
That's it. It was me and
Pete and Pete.
That sibling rivalry. That's just the way it went. If
the
he
show
liked
was
something,
about
I
two
didn't.
brothers.
That's
you were
it.
like, I'm not watching that because you are my brother. I don't want you to get any bright ideas with that
Kid with that
show.
stupid tattoo. Look at watch it.
I was so the opposite with Louis. I was like, I wanted to
yeah.
watch whatever he was watching because I thought I'm like,
opposite.
Yeah,
I
I'm
love
like,
Pete and Pete.
that's cool.
Funny enough,
Yeah.
I was a big fan of Pete and Pete. And going back to my original point, so Hey Dude, Salute Your Shorts were on around the same time. I always gravitated towards Salute Your Shorts. I think it was the whole Western setting of Hey Dude that I was just kind of like, meh. But I remember watching certain episodes and being about it. But Salute Your Shorts were like kids close to my age. So if I remember correctly, Hey Dude, they were like teenagers. They were like 15, 16, 17 years old.
Yeah.
So then there was Clarissa Explains It All, which I also watched.
Those were adult concepts, Louis. You were just a kid.
All these shows ran Nickelodeon in 1991. And obviously the king that we all know and love, Are You Afraid of the Dark, was on with all those shows as well, which we've talked about on the show multiple times. That show has come up. But yeah, Salute Your Shorts. This show, for me at least, I remember it being on, but it's one of those memories where I don't remember if I caught it first run or reruns. It might have been a little bit of a combination of both because I do remember it being on, but it might have been like season 2 because there weren't many seasons of the show.
Right.
So for me, it was just something that when it was on, like most of these sitcoms or I guess children's programming, when it was on, I'd just watch it.
You said rock.
And this wasn't even a part, if I remember correctly, this was not part of like SNCC. I don't
No,
think
it wasn't.
was.
I don't think it was. It was like after school programming.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Yeah, it wasn't like the teen Nick or like the late night Nick at
These aired
night
on Sundays.
That makes sense.
New episodes were like Sunday afternoons.
Because SNCC was Saturdays. I was like Ren and Stimpy, Doug, Rugrats, Are You Afraid of the Dark, and all that stuff. So this was just a show I think I would just catch it when it was on. And like I said, I was always going more towards the Salute Your Shorts side than Hey Dude. Now, for the listeners, if there's any youngings out there, younglings that don't know what Salute Your Shorts.
Youngins wasn't good, but Younglings reminds me of Star Wars and Anakin. So they both younglings suck.
We are the Jedi of old television shows, I guess, here at Haunted Hangover. But the show follows, and you guys can chime in if I'm missing any details here, but Salute Your Shorts follows a group of, it's like between early teens and preteens. They're like, I'd say between the age of like 11, 12 to maybe 15, 16. They're all different ages.
I think Budnick is the oldest.
Yeah. And we'll get into him. He is the show. But their antics at the fictional summer camp, Camp Anawana. And the show itself is sort of full of sort of stereotypical teen characters. Like you've got the tomboy character, you've got the nerdy skinny kid, you've got the kind of portly chubby kid, you've got the bully. You've got I'm not even joking. You got the one girl who's kind of bougie.
Yeah.
All stereotypes.
I had a crush on her.
There you go.
And she knew it. And she knew it.
Exactly.
She knew I had a crush. Yep.
And that was basically it. Every episode is kind of like Seinfeld, where they each had this problem. Seinfeld's about nothing. My bad. But they each had, there was like this dilemma or this prank or something, and they had to overcome it. Or there's an episode where Donkey Lips, the chubby kid, has to lose weight, and Sponge, the nerdy kid, has to gain weight. And there's just different things that they have to overcome in a self-contained story per episode. But the standout character, and Manny mentioned him, and I think the one most people remember about the show is Budnick, the super jerky ginger bully asshole kid played by Danny, I believe it's Cooksey. Danny Cooksey, who was...
I maintain
that
somewhere along the line, someone meant to hire him, and Danny Masterson showed up instead.
No.
He should have had Masterson's career, especially considering what a piece of shit he turned out to be. I wish that Danny Cooksey had his... They are the same age.
Okay.
They look alike. They played the same types of characters. 100% he should have had that career.
Probably.
Multiverse,
Yes.
Danny.
There is a Rick and Morty universe where Danny Cooksey was on top of that 70s show universe.
Well,
on top of the world.
Danny Masterson isn't looking too good these days, so
No,
I'm
he's
sure
not.
Danny Cooksey
Can we
is happy.
bring back Cooksey?
Yes,
bring him back.
I think Danny Cooksey is a little happy where his career went compared to where Danny Masterson went. But I digress. Yeah, Danny Cooksey's probably the one actor I'd say on this show that Terminator 2, he's John Connor's gingery jerky friend that kind of tries to divert the T-1000. Oh, he's over there. I haven't seen that kid. And also he's Montana Max's voice from Tiny Toon Adventures. And he still to this day does a lot of voice acting and stuff. So
yeah, a lot of these like really young 90s, you know, if they didn't go off to be something big or like a druggie, then they do a lot of voice acting.
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. And he's still working. Again, his voice is so distinct that as soon as you hear it, you're like, all right, this guy has voiced video game characters, animated characters, all kinds of stuff. The other character that I think most people remember from this show that maybe haven't watched it in a while is Donkey Lips, which is the fat kid who's like sort of Butnick's sidekick, but he's kind of dumb. I think a lot of the characters on the show are dumb. They're
the Laurel and Hardy, the two of them. That's what they are.
Yeah, that's sort of the gimmick with the two of them. That's kind of the situation where he still insults Donkey Lips, but Donkey Lips will do anything for him because I
mean, it's
guess
like
he enjoys
that's just a stereotype with like the bad guy bully always has the one dumb friend who's like a follower. It is an archetype.
The other thing about the show that most people remember, and Sammy, you were singing it, is the intro song.
And wanna, we hold you in our hearts. And when we think about you, it makes me wanna fart.
That's probably the one thing that as soon as you hear it, you know, it brings you back. It warms your heart to hear. It makes me want to fart. With the shorts, which funny enough, that's an actual episode that his shorts get put up in the flagpole there. But what's weird about this show, and I did a little digging because I honestly never, this is one of those shows I just watched. I never researched for any reason.
Yeah.
It has a huge cult following for most people around our age, maybe a little older, maybe even a little younger. But it only lasted for 2 seasons from 91 to 92. It did not have a long run. The other thing that I think is bizarre, and I was having this conversation with Manny before we recorded here, it's impossible to find the entire series run. It was never released on physical media in any form. So like The Adventures of Pete and Pete is currently not, we mentioned it, so I got to mention it here. That's not streaming anywhere, but it got a physical release at some point. I think I own both of them. This never got that. Are You Afraid of the Dark got a physical release. I think Hey Dude even got a physical release. Ren and Stimpy, Doug. All those shows got this for some reason never got a release. And it's available currently on Paramount Plus. If you want to stream this and watch it legally.
Did you find out a reason why?
So, no. I looked and I could not find anything.
Well, now's the time, Nick.
Could it be something along the same reason why Beavis and Butthead never got it because of music rights?
I didn't come across anything about that. It just seems like it's one of those forgotten shows in Paramount or Viacom, who owns Nickelodeon. Yeah, I think they still do.
I'm guessing there's some, especially because they have some episodes here.
Yeah.
But not all. I'm guessing there's a rights issue somewhere involved in the episodes. There's something that they don't have the rights to.
They made more references back then. The rights, they didn't really have to worry so much about. They referenced Freddy Krueger in this episode. Like, can you do that?
You know what, too? A lot of these, like Nickelodeon was really just getting started then, too. They took a lot of chances and did things like the reason why Beavis and Butthead never released the videos is because MTV didn't need the rights because they already had the rights to the music videos because they were MTV. Right. So that's why they've never released them, because now they have to chase them all down in order to release that on video or anything else. So I'm thinking that there is some sort of rights issue, something. who knows? Maybe there's a character in these episodes that they never got a release for.
I was searching and I could not find anything.
Yeah.
It's weird because when you go on Paramount Plus now or iTunes or Amazon to purchase the episodes, or if you have the Paramount Plus streaming service, you pay for it, only 10 episodes are available. And in total, there's supposed to be 23 and a pilot episode.
I see that there's 5 from each. Is it actually the first 5 or?
No, there's 5 what they chose.
Yeah, it's missing episodes. It's not.
It could also be a tapes issue.
Possibly.
Like literally the original tapes might not exist. Like there's a lot of episodes of Doctor Who that are gone forever. Because for a long time, TV, they didn't save the broadcasts. They didn't save things.
Possibly.
You know? They have the original like film that they shot it on, but the final versions that were put to tape are just gone because the tape either deteriorated or they reused them after broadcast because syndication wasn't a huge thing.
Yeah. I mean, the show behind the scenes doesn't really have a lot of drama. The only thing I read was, so from season 1 to season 2, they had to change some of the like from the pilot to the actual show when it was picked up. They had to switch characters around. I believe Donkey Lips was the antagonist originally, and they kind of swapped him with Budnick and changed his character a bit. Some of the actors grew up within the pilot to the first season being shot.
So they had
they had to like recast. So the show, like I said, the show lasted 2 seasons and then was canceled because they shot originally at They shot in California, I believe in Griffith Park, so in LA area. And Nickelodeon during this time was shooting in Florida, Orlando at Universal Studios, at Nickelodeon Studios. I think most listeners, if you're into nostalgia, you know all about Nickelodeon Studios. That's where a lot of productions were. And they wanted the cast to move to Florida and commit to relocating, and they refused. So the show literally lasted 2 seasons and they canceled it for that reason. And even the pilot, when we're going back to like episodes that are missing, was considered lost media for years until last year when it was uploaded to YouTube. So
last year.
Yeah, 2023. Yeah, so the show's got a weird history when it comes to just its availability. I guess it kind of had some drama with the cast just not wanting to come back. Maybe that has something to do with it. Maybe they were just spiteful.
Young. They were in school.
I'm just saying maybe the producers of the show are just spiteful and just don't. But Nickelodeon has the rights, so that wouldn't make any sense. And the show is popular, so why wouldn't you want to release it all? They release some episodes. Why not all of it? But that happens. Like Manny said, maybe some stuff's lost. Who knows? The pilot resurfaced after 30 years, so... Who knows? Maybe one day we'll get kind of a complete series run of Salute Your Shorts streaming somewhere, or I doubt physical media because that'd be too niche. But I could see maybe eventually Paramount maybe gets the other 20 episodes or 15, 16 episodes because they have only 10 of them. But it's a beloved show, and it's kind of crazy the run it had because it wasn't long at all. And the episode we're covering, I'd say, to most people of the fans, especially if you're a horror fan and a fan of Halloween and kind of spooky nostalgia, the episode most people remember is Zeke the Plumber.
You had a nightmare, didn't you?
Yeah.
All about Zeke the Plumber?
That guy's a real jerk.
Yeah, you know all about Harry the Hippo.
Whoa. Who's Harry the Hippo?
He's a stuffed animal I had a long time ago.
Don't worry about it. Zeke knew I hated being a priss.
So this is where things get a little funky too, because if you Google this episode, it comes up as, even on Paramount, the title is Ghost Story.
Yeah.
But if you go on IMDb and other places, it comes up as Zeke the Plumber, not Ghost Story. So it's got, so this episode is going to be titled Salute Your Shorts, Ghost Story, aka Zeke the Plumber, or Salute Your Shorts, Zeke the Plumber, aka Ghost Story, because it technically has 2 titles for some reason.
Well, maybe if if it came to fame, if it was such a popular episode, maybe that was just a way. That was just a way that people identified it. They're like, "Oh, the one about the ghosts? I don't know what you're talking about. Zeke the Plumber. Oh, that guy."
Yeah, you might be right. That's just that people know the episode as the Zeke the Plumber episode, and that's the one they're looking for. So people are just going after Zeke the Plumber, not Ghost Story. But if you look it up, it does pop up with both titles. So it's one of those. So this episode is part of season 1. It's episode 2, and it aired June 5th, 1991. So Zeke the Plumber, aka Ghost Story, features a cold open with Sponge, the nerdy kid, filming a video that he's intending to send to his parents, kind of giving them a tour of the camp, very found footage style.
Found footage horror. We're starting off.
Starting off with a bang. Blair Witch before Blair Witch.
Found footage Jason film.
There you go. And he comes across Butnick, who is carving, and I didn't even talk about this character, and I'll talk about him here. Ugh. He's carving into the tree, into the sacred tree, which is what Sponge says, because that's a part of the camp. Camp Anawana has these sacred trees. But Budnick is carving Ugg is a loser into...
Lee is a loser.
Yes, Ugg Lee
last
is a
name Lee.
loser. Yes, last name Lee. Ugg Lee.
He's not even a bad-looking guy.
His name is Ugg Lee.
No, I think the kids call him Ugg Lee. I don't think his name is actually... I think his name is Ugg, and they just call him Ugg Lee.
That's funny. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. But the only reason I even said anything is because I had to put the subtitles on because I wanted to hear him insult him. And it said ugly. And I was like, oh, his
maybe that's his last name. His first name is Eugene and his last name is L-E-E.
I mean, they call him Ugg. I assumed that they just... Lee was what they just named him, like the kids tease him by calling him Ugly.
It's even better.
His name is Kevin Lee.
Oh my!
The character's name is Kevin Lee, so they nicknamed him Ugg.
They got the Ugg. Yep. They added the Ugg.
Yep. So his last name is Lee. So he's Lee. Ugly.
His name is Kevin.
Some shit my brother would make up.
There you go. When I was 11, I would call someone Ugg, and their last name is Lee. So yes. Budnick is carving into the sacred tree. Ugg Lee is a loser. Now, I brushed over. I didn't even mention him. Ugg is the only adult character, if I remember correctly, and I've seen this show a bunch of times. The
designated adult for the show.
He's he's the only lead adult character in the entire cast.
And Dr. Khan.
Yes, who you never see. You hear his voice, and that's it. So Ugg watches over the kids. He's the head camp counselor. And in a nutshell, he's a big oof. He just doesn't, he's dumb. The kids are smarter than him. Like, he really plays it up. A lot of slapstick with his character. And in this episode, there's a ton of that with him. Towards the end of it.
It kind of goes to what we said last time we did a kid. What was the last show that we did? That back then, kids were always smarter than the adults. In movies and TV shows. It's kind of a thing that they did, and I think that's what made kids shows so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Because the kids had parents were just there.
Yeah, adults were just there to kind of move the story along. They weren't actually integral to the story. They were just there because adults exist in the world.
You need I think every children's show needs like a dumb adult. That's just a trope that every kid's show has. I think even now, and I wouldn't know, I don't really watch many children's programming. I'm not even around it really much, but I'm sure.
But you watch Camp Nowhere.
It's the same.
Really?
It's the same.
Well, Camp Nowhere is an old movie.
Yeah, I know.
That's a great movie. It's Christopher Lloyd, right?
Christopher Lloyd is Ugg.
Yeah, basically, you're
the
right.
Same, basically. But then at some point, he has to become an adult.
Yeah. He's got to grow up. It's like Ernest, too. Ernest is kind of like a little...
Ernest never grows up.
Yeah, he never grows up.
Ernest never grows up.
But yes.
Side tangent over.
Yes. So as Budnick is carving, Ugg Lee is a loser into the tree. Ugg realizes that Sponge is recording this tour of the camp for his parents. And he's basically chasing Sponge because Budnick is denying carving Ugly into the tree. So he wants the footage from Sponge. So he basically harasses this child and rushes at him And the last shot is like the camera. He's like, give me the camera. Give me the camera. And the camera is raised up and we cut to the classic intro to the show. After that, we then cut to the group of all the main characters, I'd say, and a bunch of extras, all gathered together in a cabin surrounded by candles. And we learn that Budnick, in this intro, and this plays into the plot later, I use that word loosely here. We learn that Budnick in this setup is scared of spiders because Donkey Lips places a rubber spider on his lap and he quickly brushes it off and says, I hate spiders.
Foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing. Listen, smart writing. They gave you the little crumb there that was going to play into the ending. So Budnick goes into this scary story about a janitor named Zeke the Plumber, whose nose was bitten off by a parrot in the Philippines while he was in the army.
Because that's the sort of thing that happens in the Philippines.
Can I just say that the name Zeke is so freaking 90s to me?
Yes, it is.
It's like the most 90s name, and Bud. Like,
you ever met anyone named Zeke?
No, because I don't remember anybody's name from the 90s. Zeke.
So yes, we learn Zeke's backstory here. We go in depth. Budnick gives the deep dive into the Zeke the Plumber mythology here.
Say old Zeke the Plumber's ghost still walks around Camp Anawana looking for his plunger. Anyone who touches it will be haunted in their dreams.
What is this guy, the Freddy Krueger of custodians?
So this noseless man can't smell. Zeke is digging a hole. He's the janitor. He's the plumber, the custodian of Camp Anawana now after his Philippines army his excursion.
Decided to lay low after that.
His Filipino experience.
He's heading out to Camp Anawana to plunge toilets apparently, and he's digging a random hole.
It's a good place to retire.
I agree. So he's digging a random hole. There's no context as to why Zeke is digging this hole in the story that Budnick is telling. He's digging the hole, and what happens? He hits a gas pipe, and he lights a match. Because that's why he does it.
Because it's dark and he can't see.
He can't see. And he can't smell the gas.
Ditch in the middle of the night.
Yes, and he can't smell the gas because he has no nose. So what happens?
Shit.
Lights the match and he explodes.
The burning.
The burning. He explodes like a human party popper, as Budnick says.
Yes.
Budnick explains that all that was found after said explosion was Zeke's toilet plunger that is now cursed. Cursed object, Manny, your favorite. Mm-hmm. Cursed. We've got a cursed plunger in this episode. And that Zeke still haunts the grounds. And I do love the small detail. And I want to talk about this scene because I think it's a great setup. I think, honestly, for a kid's show, and you know this had a low budget, they did a fantastic job. The set with all the candles lit, they lit it great. It's a little
candles
dark,
were cheap.
Dim. Oh, of course. But you know what I mean? Like the certain vibe they were trying to set up in this scene to me was great. The detail of Budnick holding the plunger with a bandana because he doesn't want to touch it and then throwing it across to the kids so that the two of them grab it.
Cursed.
And now they're cursed.
By the stinky part. They grabbed it by the stinky part.
Yes, they were cool with holding the rubber suction of it. But I've always loved the setup of this episode with the creepy music and Budnick's sinister laughter while he's trying to be a jerk and tell them this scary story. It's just a great setup. I've always just been a sucker for it, and I just think, like, Budnick is the ultimate shitty kid. And this scene, he's making up this story is obviously bullshit. You can just smell the bullshit in the air that he's just making this up as he goes along, to the point that Donkey Lips is helping him tell the story. He died in an explosion. He's missing his nose. He's telling him this, and he's just adding it to the story because it's all bullshit. And the rest of the kids are so oblivious. They're listening to him like it's fact. Like, this is a true story. I just think for a kid's show, it's pretty smart. It's still dumb, but it's pretty smart writing. And it's
pretty honestly, smart. It's still dumb, but it's pretty smart.
It's pretty smart, but it's still dumb. And honestly, for a child actor, Budnick, he's great. Like Danny Cooksey, he's really good in this scene. I think he's honest. Again, we said it before. He's the best part of the show. He's always been what most people remember. He's good. He's good in reciting this terrible, dumb Zeke the Plumber story. And you'd when you watch this, like remember being a kid, you'd be like, I'd fall for a stupid story like this when I'm 6. Maybe not the age that these kids are.
I thought you were going to say I'd fall for Budnick.
No, I wouldn't. Not me, but maybe somebody else.
Sammy had a thing for Budnick. I know.
Absolutely. Any bully in a.
There you go.
Any redheaded bully. That's it.
With the freckles, I'm done.
That's it. It's a wrap. It's the ginger that got her.
Gets us all. Gets us all, buddy.
Gets us all. We all fall for the gingers. So as the episode continues, all the kids are shook by the Zeke the Plumber story. The girls are using this witch doctor practice involving toothpaste around the bed because it helps avoid spirits attacking them at night. It's dumb.
So good. So funny. There's so many like funny moments in the writing here. It feels so old school Nickelodeon. Yeah. The witch doctor, there's a part that scene where they're setting up the toothpaste to protect themselves from Zeke the Plumber. She's like 4 to 5 witch doctors 4 to 5 doctors say that toothpaste will protect you. And she goes, witch doctors. She goes, exactly, witch doctors. And I actually laughed out loud. I'm like,
it's pretty witty. Like it's like witch doctors from Lamgonia or something. Yes. She says, she's like witch doctors from Lamgonia. It is good. She's
from Langonia.
Very
Langomia.
Specific. Something like that. She's very and then she hands her a book. If you notice, so she's handing her the witch doctor book.
So funny.
All the girls. Yeah, here you go.
My own personalized copy.
Signed by the witch doctor from Langonia. So all the girls are scared. They're putting the toothpaste around the bed. Later that night, the character of Michael, who's kind of the main character of the show in this first season, if I remember correctly, he kind of disappears in the second season. They recast this role. I think he didn't want to do the show anymore, or salary dispute or something. I'm pretty sure it's this character, Michael. But Michael has a nightmare that night in bed where Zeke the Plumber appears, plunged in a toilet, and threatens to reveal to the entire camp that he sucks his thumb and has a stuffed animal named Henry the Hippo. And Zeke uses a bullhorn.
Attention, everybody! Michael's dying, sucked his thumb, and he has a stuffed animal at camp.
And honestly, the way they frame the scene, I remember seeing it for the first time and thinking it was kind of creepy.
It is.
And I don't want to talk about Zeke the Plumber because the look of Zeke the Plumber is one of my favorite things, and we'll save that for after we're done here. But it's just such an odd scene. It's obviously an homage to Freddy Krueger. It's got very kind of Nightmare on Elm Street vibes.
The Freddy Krueger of custodians.
They even say that. Like you mentioned before, you even mentioned that. They mentioned Freddy Krueger. That's what he is. He's the Freddy Krueger of custodians. But even the visual of him kind of plunging the toilet and then the Henry the Hippo being yanked out of it, it's very Freddy Krueger-esque.
I think it's Harry. I think
is it Henry or Henry?
I think it's Harry. Okay,
sorry,
that's
guys.
So rude of you.
Harry the Hippo.
The poor hippo is being
Harry the Hippo gets
misnamed.
pulled from the toilet. He's all wet, and I do like how Zeke the Plumber, after every nightmare, he just sticks the stinky end of the plunger into their face. That's probably the most horrific thing.
They just watch it come at them too. Like they just sit there
screaming, "No!" as it just comes closer and closer.
It's so funny,
ridiculous. So yeah,
Ventura moment.
Yes, that's Michael's nightmare. Everyone's gonna know about his thumb sucking and his Harry the Hippo stuffed animal that he sleeps with every night.
Harry.
Which he does. Harry. Sorry, guys.
You keep saying Harry.
Harry the Hippo.
Like the first time you said Buttnick. Like, come on, buddy. You said Buttnick the first time.
I'm sure someone has called him that.
Buttnick.
Sure they have.
On the show.
Budnick, Harry,
Budnick
Henry.
and Harry.
So the next day, Budnick starts bullying Michael, calling him a chicken, a wuss, really aggressively. Wuss, chicken, wuss, really aggressive for being scared of Zeke the Plumber of the story. So Telly, the tomboy girl, she goes, she's tired, she didn't get a good night's rest because of Zeke the Plumber story. She decides right then and there to take a nap in the recreation
cafeteria.
Just
middle of the rec room. She's just gonna
a comfortable wooden table.
Yes, she's gonna rest her head. And Budnick decides to be a jerk, walks over, whispers into Telly's ear, Zeke the Plumber, Zeke the Plumber, over and over again. And this triggers another nightmare sequence that we get here, where Zeke forces Telly to dance at a ball, when in reality, I think he asked her, like, what do you want to do when you're older? What is your biggest dream? And it's to play ball, baseball, I'm assuming, or basketball, not sure.
Mm-hmm.
So he forces her in a dress.
Ball,
yeah, he forces her in a dress, and there's a disco ball, and she's in a rec room now that's empty, and Zeke the Plumber's like, let's dance, and he starts to dance with the plunger, and he's being all horrific, I guess, to her. She's not happy to be wearing a dress and being forced to dance, even though she never danced. And it's not like Zeke grabs her and dances with her. He just tells her she has to dance.
The nightmare is not so much the dance.
It's just the concept.
No, it's the dress.
Yeah, that's what really
she's
does
obsessed
it.
with wearing the dress.
It's the dress.
The dresses.
But the visual of Zeke just like, let's dance with the plunger is it's hysterical. I thought it was, I chuckle every time. It's just a funny visual of this creepy looking dude with the plunger dancing and trying to convince her to dance. So Telly and Michael, they go to Sponge, nerdy man McGee, and nerdy man McGee, and they ask him, why is this happening? Why are they both dreaming about Zeke the Plumber? And this whole thing that Budnick, because he's the smart nerdy kid. Remember, guys, he knows everything.
He explains it.
Yeah, he explains it. That he's created this character, and now they're subconscious. It's very Nightmare on Elm Street has just kind of created the persona of Zeke the Plumber, and now it's torturing them in their dreams. And now this is where things change gears. Because now their plan is, we have to get back at Budnick for this. It becomes a revenge plot.
For my subconscious. Yes. How dare he?
They're not going to like go into the dream world now and use their dream warrior powers to defeat Zeke the Plumber.
They didn't have that kind of budget.
No, they didn't.
Take it easy, buddy.
What they want to do is play a prank on Budnick and just get back at him, and so that he could admit that he is also a wuss and scared of stuff. He's not the tough guy he says he is. So what they do is the group dares him, or Michael and Telly specifically, they dare him to, and this is where I'm like, wait, you guys got me. Is Zeke the Plumber real or not? But they dare Budnick to go to the location where Zeke the Plumber died. The exact location. And of course,
somehow, Telly, who did his research.
No, Sponge knows.
Sponge, yes. Sponge did his research into the camp records, and he found the spot that this imaginary person died. He said this person that Budnick knows he made up entirely. He made this shit up. Whole cloth. Totally made it up. And he's like, yep, this is the spot.
According to his calculations.
That's why it's a kid's show, guys.
Yes. According to his calculations with the compass and the maps and the records.
Right here.
Right. This is the spot.
This
right
is the
here,
spot.
really. Yes, I did my research according to the camp records.
Listen, man.
Where did he get camp
shit.
Records?
Yes.
Where did Sponge get the camp records is what I want to know.
Ugg is such an idiot. He just gave him the key to the record
He just
room.
walked in and just, sure, here you go.
Listen, dude, there's no other adults on campus, on the campground.
So when Ugg was in the bathroom, they just snuck into the office, pulled out some records.
Exactly. He just went into it. He found the exact date. He looked up the Philippines War and this guy who lost his nose and
lost
it to a parrot, and then there you go. This is where he exploded.
Set up a little chair there for him.
So yes,
Sponge figured out what Ice Cube's best day was too.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So that's the plan. Budnick has to spend the evening where Zeke the Plumber died and can't ask anyone for help. If he chickens out, he has to admit to the whole camp that he's a wuss and not as tough as he says he is. And if he ends up spending the night there successfully, what happens? Michael has to admit that he has Harry the Hippo, and Telly has to wear a dress. So that's kind of the bet that the two groups have there. So really high stakes here, guys.
Dude.
So what's the next thing they want to do? They decide that they're going to try to prank Budnick in attempt at, I guess, forcing a scare out of him, because they know that Zeke, I guess, isn't real. And again, a little convoluted here. What exactly is he real? Is he fake? But they're going to use several different tools at their disposal.
Just want to humanize him.
They want to scare Budnick. And these are the different ways they try to scare Budnick as he sits in the chair. And he's got something waiting for them too. But let me break down here what they use. So the girls decide to put pantyhose on their heads.
and run up and yell.
That's it. Nice. I believe it's Sponge and Michael decide to use these really cheap-looking fake ghosts that they're just going to grab and bounce around and scream.
Bed sheets on a stick.
Yes, and just scream. They literally go and scream. Ah!
It's not a very well thought out plan.
And the other plan is they're going to, and I think this is just a way to kind of get rid of Donkey Lips. And this ties into Halloween, guys. So it's Friday the 13th, but we're also celebrating Halloween here. They tell Donkey Lips to put on a mask and just creep out Budnick. What is this mask? It's a jack-o'-lantern mask. Woo! And he is blind.
Woo! Full circle.
He can't see anything. I think they just did this because they knew Donkey Lips would just mess everything up. So it's like, all right, this is how we get rid of him. He's an idiot. He'll be completely blind wearing this jack-o'-lantern on his head and wander the woods and possibly kill himself. That's what they want to do with Donkey Lips.
Okay, I want you to stick this over your head, and when I give you the cue, I want you to run at Budnick screaming. And if we don't scare him, hey, you sure will. But I can't see a thing.
Budnick sets up booby traps, Arnold Schwarzenegger Predator style, and deflects.
It was all Nancy Thompson on them.
Yes, deflects all the pranks that are coming his way. But there's one last prank. Ugh wants to get back at Budnick for the ugly carving into the wall. And while Budnick's waiting in the woods after all his booby traps go off and attack all the kids, Zeke the Plumber shows up. He's there. And he's asking for Budnick's head to go into his pail. And what happens? Budnick says, "You're not taking my head, dude." And he runs, and Zeke the Plumber runs after him. But what happens? He's cornered. And Budnick realizes that Zeke the Plumber says, "I can smell your fear."
Busted.
And if busted. And Budnick knows Zeke can't smell. How can he smell my fear? And another booby trap goes off.
That's how fear gets something you can actually smell. That's what makes it so funny.
You can't smell fear, but also Zeke. Yes, exactly. Zeke. There's also a fart joke earlier in this episode.
He's like, I cut one.
Yes, I brushed over that. Sorry, guys.
That's for no reason. It had nothing to do with the concept, the conversation that was happening. He just said, I just cut one.
Yes. So Zeke the Plumber is not Zeke the Plumber. It's Ugg. He's lifted off the ground with one of those, I don't know what you call it, but when you're hanging upside down and just swinging there. A rope booby trap, I guess. I'm sure there's a scientific name for this
like a
mechanism.
There's weight on one end and the body on the other.
So he takes off the mask. It's Ugg. Budnick's like, "You're an idiot." And he's like, "Cut me loose." Budnick runs off to get a knife. What happens? Budnick walks right through a giant cobweb. Spider web just sitting there. He starts freaking out, crying out to everyone in the night, telling them, "Please, guys, help me. I'll be your slave. I'll do whatever you want. Don't leave me out here, guys." Please help me. The rest of the kids are eating potato chips and decide to finally go out there. They confront him. They tell him, confess to the camp that you're not this tough guy. You're not this, big bad dude. And he just becomes their slave now. They hand all their paraphernalia off to him, and they make him hold everything, and he's their slave now. We never find out what happens to Budnick after this. No. And the episode ends with Ugg the next day still hanging from the tree. They forgot about him. And what does he see? He sees Donkey Lips. Wearing the jack-o'-lantern mask, walking towards him like this guy has been walking all night
like an idiot with a mask. Just
didn't think taking the mask off was a good idea at any point.
No, he would have been Donkey Lips,
and you're not.
Yes. He's walking towards Ugg, and Ugg sees this, and he's an idiot too, and he's terrified beyond all recognition, and scream, and that's the end of Zeke, salute your shorts, Zeke the Plumber, or Ghost Story.
I can smell your fear.
Please stop. I'll make you a deal.
I don't make deals with roaches.
What if I told you everything I ever did bad at camp?
Like carving Ugg as a loser in the circling tree.
All right, guys. What did you think of this episode? Sammy, we're going to start with you.
I love this episode. I was actually laughing out loud because of all of these silly little one-liners. I think that kind of, it just growing up with Nickelodeon, it's the same kind of humor that they've carried throughout all of their shows. But all those one-liners fucking got me so hard. I actually thought they were so funny. And yeah, like you said, Budnick was my favorite. And considering how I feel about child actors, it was 1000% acceptable. Their performances, I think if it was good performances, I wouldn't like it. It was perfect.
I mean, compared to some of the Goosebumps and
that we've seen,
Are You Afraid of the
great.
Dark episodes, right? Because you usually are very hard on the child actors. You actually
so
enjoyed.
Bad. But this was fun. I liked it. It was really silly. I particularly like that I guess talking about budget or whatever, they don't have their own interpretation of what Zeke the Plumber looks like. Zeke the Plumber looks the same in both of these kids' dreams. And then when the camp counselor puts on the mask like that, he looks the same exact way. I think that was pretty interesting, and that kind of plays into whether or not he is real. Maybe he is Freddy Krueger. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Because if it was a figment of your imagination, you don't see a picture of the guy. Wouldn't he look a little different? But I thought that was really cool. I liked it. It was so good. It was so fun.
Before we go into Manny's thoughts, I want to talk. You mentioned his look. I feel like we didn't really get into it there.
We didn't.
So Zeke the Plumber is pretty horrific looking. He's wearing
the silliest way.
It just looks bizarre. It looks like what a kid would think this person would look like. So, and this is what I think. This is the funniest part. So, he's wearing overalls, right? Overalls, a plaid shirt, a skin-toned, can't quite pinpoint what it's supposed to be, what the original mask was.
Almost looked like an old man mask. Like it had gray hair and
yes.
Yeah.
But the hair and the mustache looked like they were attached after the fact.
Yeah, for sure they were.
Like they were it looks like a toupee and a bad mustache were glued to
probably because that's what happened.
Human face mask. Then
probably
he's got
exactly what they did.
100%. And then he's got a fishing kind of hat on. And then this is the funniest part. So in the story, I said it, his nose was blown off, and he's wearing the mask because his real face is fucked up. His face looks horrible. But for some reason, the mask is wearing a bandage with blood on it. On the mask. And I'm pretty sure the entire episode, it's the actor that portrays Ugg. It's him. Every time you see Zeke the Plumber. So he's making his gravelly voice. Yeah, he's making his gravelly voice. He's holding the plunger. It is weird looking. And if you're 5 in 1991 or 6, it's a safe bet you'd be terrified by just looking at this scary looking thing. And there's like these tight shots of his face and just him looking at the camera turning with the blue light shining on it.
The scariest thing was Michael waking up and him just plunging in a toilet that's in the middle of the room. Because then when he wakes up from his nightmare, there's just beds next to him. And I'm like, oh shit, they went through all that trouble to put a toilet in there and move these beds? That's crazy.
Listen.
It was scary.
I will agree. And I think that's, it's simple things like this that make set dressing and set design, and even on a low budget kids show like this, that's what makes it feel weird that when they go to bed, and it's a Nightmare on Elm Street ripoff, obviously, but when they go to bed, all the beds are there, all, everything, all the camp paraphernalia is all over the place. And then when they wake up, it's empty, like you said. Yeah. It's a completely desolate room. And it's just a toilet. And even when Telly goes and takes a nap and wakes up in the dream world, it's the same rec room, but empty with a disco ball in it, I'm pretty sure. So I do like how they shot in the same location, but just altered the way the room looks and changed the lighting a bit to make it feel like a dream. I even think there's a little haziness over the kind of whoever edited it, maybe, or even in the in-camera effect where they add a little haziness to the dream sequences to make them feel a little more dream-like. So I think the execution, as silly as it is and as dumb as it is kind of eerie, and it works. Not at 38 years old, but when I was 6, I will admit, when I first saw Zeke the Plumber, I did think he was kind of creepy, and I got it. And funny enough, I was reading on IMDb that later on in reruns, they didn't air this episode that much because of the Zeke the Plumber sequences. They were too creepy. Or they cut them out entirely.
What a bunch of pussies.
Which is weird. To cut out the dream sequences, that's very...
How do you even have that story without that? That's so weird.
Yeah. It's very strange because he's so prominent in the episode, even at the very end, which that scene too, I even have it in my notes here. The scene at the very end where Ugg, dressed as Zeke the Plumber, is chasing Budnick through the woods. I love the way the music plays and the lighting, and there's that shot of what's supposed to be moonlight hitting a puddle, and you see his footstep into it, and then Zeke the Plumber's footstep into it, and he's chasing him. I've always loved, I think the way they lit the dumb costume and the way they kind of just shot it, it makes it kind of creepy. Like it works for what it is, and I appreciate that as a horror fan and a fan of Halloween. Manny, I can't wait to hear this. Manny, what did you think of this episode? I can't wait to hear this. Because I know he hasn't seen this in years. So I'm very curious.
I liked it.
What did you like?
I'm not giving you any more this time.
That's it. You're cutting me off right there.
That's fucking it.
What'd you like about it?
I've always liked it. It's just one of those shows. I still like it. I liked it then. I thought it was cool. I think this is probably the best episode of the show.
I think it's a safe bet.
I think it's the best one.
And I think as like horror fans, you could use this as a kid, as a young, when you're, 9, 10. And if you're not a kid that watched horror movies as a kid, obviously the three of us don't really fit in that category. We liked horror stuff and you kind of gravitated towards it. You watched horror movies on TV. This is a good kind of gateway horror for kids. Kind of a good way to introduce you had, this show that wasn't a horror show at all, but has this one singular episode that features a relatively terrifying character. I love
stuff like that.
That's weird looking and just odd. And
the bandage on the mask is so funny.
With blood. There's actually blood.
I'll never get over it.
Does it?
It's so stupid. I love it so much.
I just want to know the scientific... like how that works.
Louis, are you going to be Zeke the Plumber for Halloween?
So I've been wanting to dress up as Zeke the Plumber for Halloween for years, but that's a costume I have to make. Yeah,
genius.
I think Sammy's right in it's what a kid would see.
Yeah,
this is the opinion of what a kid would find scary and what a kid would think a plumber would look like.
Right.
And Budnick says that he wears a mask and that he blew off his nose. So a kid would picture a mask and then a bandage on the mask.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that it doesn't make sense. This is what an 11-year-old kid would
Yes, I think
picture.
this was a conversation that was had at the drawing board. Like it had to be. It's not just late. Like if you didn't understand like how these things went about, you would think it's lazy writing and creating, but it's not. This is like something that was thought about. Like exactly how you said, a kid would just still imagine the bandage over his nose. Like it's so silly.
It's an amalgamation of and it's crazy to think, when you listen to Budnick tell the story in the beginning of the episode, he never describes what Zeke's wearing. He just describes the blown off nose and that he was a plumber. So they picture this.
Like what does a custodian look like?
A flannel shirt and a
fisherman hat. And have a gray mustache and toupee on his head in the place of his real face after exploding. So not only does he have no nose, he also exploded, guys. So we got to keep so he's not even burned. He's just wearing this cheap rubber mask. The other thing that I get a kick out, and I mentioned it in the breakdown there, but the subplot of Donkey Lips being such an idiot, where I love how they tied Halloween into this somehow. Like they just were able to someone was like, what we should put on Donkey Lips' head? A jack-o'-lantern.
A little
this
jack-o'-lantern
is technically
mask.
not Halloween, but we can kind of give it that little flavor. Because a lot of people
maybe it was their Halloween episode. This was what they wanted to do.
A lot of people now
in July or June.
In June, yeah.
It was June or July.
Yeah, it was So people at this point, now in 2024, the character of Zeke the Plumber is super popular, and you go like people put together Halloween mixtape, like video mixtapes and stuff, and they stick this episode in it, even though it's technically not a Halloween episode, but it definitely has that feeling with the jack-o'-lantern mask and the the Zeke the Plumber, Freddy Krueger kind of homage, I guess, in the horror elements of the episode. So I do like that a lot. It's a great episode. There's honestly, I have no negatives when it comes to the Zeke the Plumber episode of Salute Your Shorts. I just think it's great. I just think everything about it is spot on when it comes to children's television, trying to kind of give a horror flair to like a little horror ghost story episode in it, because you had Are You Afraid of the Dark at the time, and you didn't have Goosebumps yet. That wasn't out yet.
Yeah, but if you're going to do a spooky episode of a children's show, this is what I would expect. It's still, pretty PG. It's
perfection. I'm pretty sure most of the listeners would agree, like that this is probably, this is a pretty popular episode. I think most people, it's probably one of the more basic episodes we've covered on the show, but it's so good. I love it. I wanted to cover something that had to do with a camp on Friday the 13th. And I was like, who better than Zeke the Plumber? Zeke the Plumber. That wonderful shot of him plunging a toilet in creepy moonlit darkness. Nothing screams Friday the 13th than a plunger. Just unclogging.
Plunger to the face.
Plunger to the face.
Yes, I'm afraid you're trapped here for quite a long while. For the rest of your life. So relax, enjoy the music, and let's dance!
So that was Salute Your Shorts, Zeke the Plumber, a.k.a.
Ghost Story.
Yes,
Ghost Story. Get it right.
Get it right. It's either Ghost Story or Zeke the Plumber. And you should watch it this Friday the 13th. Don't watch Friday the 13th 6 for the 100th time.
No.
Watch Salute Your Shorts. Zeke the
grow
Plumber.
up.
I'd rather watch
Ghost
this
Story.
than Friday the 13th 6.
Probably. I think I'd rather watch Zeke the Plumber as well. Be sure to subscribe. Follow us on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok at Haunted Hangover. Head over to hauntedhangover.com, where you can find links to everything, including our Patreon page, where you can gain early access to episodes, bonus content, and much more.
And if you can rate and review us, that would be greatly appreciated.
And as always, remember, the best cure for a hangover is
more booze.
Catch you guys later.
Bye-bye.
Watch out for Zeke the Plumber.